Welcome to the TSI A2 ELAR Writing Prep from Star Center Tutoring Services at Lone Star College, Montgomery. The TSI A2 Texas Success Initiative Assessment 2 is a college readiness placement test. It is designed to place you in the classes that you are most ready for. It is not pass-fail. It is divided into two main sections. You have the math section and you have the ELAR with an essay. The math section is divided into 20 multiple-choice questions covering areas in quantitative reasoning, algebraic reasoning, geometric and spatial reasoning, and probabilistic reasoning. The ELAR section, English, Language, Arts, and Reading, is 30 multiple-choice questions that are reading-focused and writing-focused. In the past, this section was actually two separate tests, reading and writing. Now they're combined, and you'll just go through the multiple choice questions. The essay test requires you to provide a 300 to 600 word essay in response to one randomly selected prompt. The TSI A2 is scored immediately. So what score do you need to place into English 1301? The ELAR requires a score in the range between 945 and 990 on the College Readiness Classification Test, and you need to have a score of at least a 5 on the essay test. If you score below 945 on the CRC, you'll need an ELAR diagnostic test score of a 5 or a 6 with an essay test score of a 5 or higher. What can you expect? The TSI A2 is a placement test. It is not pass-fail. The scores you receive will be used to assist in determining the most appropriate course at this time. The multiple choice tests are adaptive. The more you get right, the harder it will get. You cannot skip a question or go back to change an answer. Be sure that the answer that you've chosen is the one that you were trying to choose. Read each question carefully before proceeding to the next question. Tips for computer-based testing. Read each question twice, slowly. 3 readings are good for word problems. Read the first time to get a feel for the problem. Read the second time to get a grasp on what information is provided and what information you need to answer. Read the third time to check that what you select is what the question is asking. Use the multiple choice answers to guide your strategies. Reread each passage until you understand it. Be sure you ask what is asked. Check to see if the answer is reasonable. Which answer has the most support and evidence? Anytime you come across a multiple choice question, eliminate as many of the proposed answers as possible. Remember, the TSI A2 test is untimed. You have until closing time. So what should you expect? This placement test measures your understanding of grammar, usage, and writing strategies. The test also measures your ability to recognize and understand errors of agreement and sentence structure, as well as your ability to make revisions in order to improve logic, coherence, organization, word choice effectiveness, and the use of evidence in writing. In some questions, you will be asked to select the best version of the underlying part of the sentence. In other questions, you will be asked to rewrite a sentence without changing its meaning or to revise a section of a short essay. Here are some additional resources that you may find useful. The second one is particularly helpful because College Board are the people who write and produce the TSI A2. They have designed their own sample test that you can go through and test yourself. If you go down to that second one, College Board also has a series of learning resources that you can use. They also have a study app that is included. I highly advise you to go ahead and go in there and start using that because it'll allow you to test your knowledge and it's adaptive. And then the last one just provides some additional study guides for your use. We're going to have a quick review of grammar terms and definitions. Some of these will be found in the test itself. Some of them are just areas that understanding makes it a little bit easier as you're going through and trying to find the correct answers. Revision. This is retaining the original meaning. Choose the best version. Focus on grammar and sentence structure. Choose the best answer provided. This is based on the information provided and what questions are asked. You will choose the best answer from the provided options. In context. These type of questions considers the information provided in a specific passage. And a positive is a word or group of words that renames or restates a previously named noun or pronoun providing additional information. It's generally separated by a comma from the noun or pronoun. Often it's going to be bracketed by those commas. Look at our example. Sunil, the manager, hired 3 new employees last week. The manager is our positive. It's giving us additional information on Sunil. You'll notice that it's bracketed by a comma on either side. The manager, Sunil, hired 3 more employees last week. Sunil in this case serves as the appositive. A dangling modifier is a word or phrase that modifies another word that is not clearly stated. The doer of the action must follow the modifying phrase. Having washed the dishes, the movie was turned back on. This is a dangling modifier because we don't know who turned the movie on. Who is the person who's making the action? To correct this, we need to make sure that we inserted a subject. Having washed the dishes, Nadi turned the movie back on. Now we know who was doing the action. Now we're going to look at some sentence faults. A fragment is a phrase or group of words that's most commonly missing a subject or a verb. A lot of times it's acting as a sentence containing an ending of punctuation. Sometimes a fragment will just be a dependent clause by itself. When tomorrow comes. This is an incomplete sentence because this is a dependent clause. To correct it, we're going to go ahead and just add the independent clause to complete the thought. When tomorrow comes, we will start again. A comma splice is when you have 2 or more independent clauses joined incorrectly together with a comma. Riley finished her homework early, she can go to the party. A run-on sentence is when you have 2 or more independent clauses that are joined incorrectly together without any punctuation. They're sometimes referred to as a fused sentence. Riley finished her homework early, she can go to the party. A lot of times if you are reading the sentence, especially if you're reading it out loud, and you start to feel like you're running out of breath, this may be a good indicator that this may be a run-on sentence because you don't have that natural internal punctuation. Note, comma splices and run-on sentences can generally be corrected by doing one of 3 things. 1. Divide the independent clauses into separate sentences. Here's our example. Riley finished her homework early. She can go to the party. The second way is to separate the independent clauses with a semicolon if the clauses are closely related in meaning or subject. Riley finished her homework early. She can go to the party. The last way is to separate the independent clauses with a comma and a conjunction if the clauses are closely related in meaning or subject. We have 2 examples. Riley finished her homework early. Now she can go to the party. Riley finished her homework early, so she can go to the party. When checking for pronoun agreement, make sure that gendered pronouns agree with each other and the noun they're paired with. He, him, his, she, her, hers. Just a note, when a sentence has more than one person of the same gender, do not use a personal pronoun. Here's an example of why we don't do this. Emmy had been friends with Liz since she saved her from a bully in 3rd grade. We're unclear who the she and the her is referring to. To correct this, you would remove the personal pronouns and insert the names listing. Emmy had been friends with Liz since Liz saved Emmy from a bully in 3rd grade. Subject-verb agreement. The subject and the verb must agree in number. If your verb is plural, then your subject should be plural as well. Eli are a good swimmer. This is wrong because Eli is singular, but the verb are is plural. To correct this, you'll need to change your verb to singular. Eli is a good swimmer. Singular versus plural agreement. In this case, the noun must agree in number with the words that refer to it. A cat versus 5 cats. From the bottoms of my heart is wrong because we're only talking about one heart. Proper punctuation. Each sentence should have proper punctuation, both internal punctuation and ending punctuation. If you come across any answers where the punctuation is incorrect, you can automatically cross those off. Spelling and grammar. Use correct spelling and grammar when writing. If you do not know how to spell a word and cannot look up the spelling, use a different word. On the same subject, if you're coming across a potential answer and you find a word is misspelled or the grammar is incorrect, you can generally cross that off as well. Remember, we write differently than we speak. Use complete sentences and proper capitalization. Watch out for homonyms. These are words that look or sound the same but have different meanings. Take a look at our examples. We have red versus red, read versus read, and read versus read. Synonyms are words that are similar in meaning. Different, contrasting, diverse. These are all synonyms. Antonyms are words that have opposite meanings. Hot versus cold. Appropriate vocabulary. This considers what writing style is most appropriate for the passage. Most academic writing is formal using third person he, her, it, they, and avoids the first person I, me, we, and second person you and your personal pronouns unless you're directed otherwise by the instructor. Make sure that you're avoiding the use of profanity, contraction, slang, and biased language. On that note, though, as you're going through and they're asking you questions about grammar, make sure that your vocabulary matches the writing style of each passage that you're coming across. Formal versus informal vocabulary. Formal writing uses a less personal style. It's more professional and businesslike, whereas informal writing is a personal form of communication. It's more relaxed and friendly. Our conversational communication tends to be more informal. So if we were talking conversationally, formally, hello, how are you? If we're talking informally, yo, bro, how you doing? Audience appropriateness. This considers what the audience needs to know, what the audience already knows, and what information is needed to prove and support the main point or thesis. Standard English conventions. These are the standard practices and expectations in a language or writing, primarily in regard to structure. In a paragraph or essay, this would be making sure that you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. In a sentence, this would be a subject, verb, and punctuation. Now we're going to go a little bit more in depth with our grammar review. An independent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, forming a complete thought. It can be a sentence. Jim studied at the inn. This is complete. It gives us all of our information. We're not left wondering what else happens. If we want to, we can just put a period and leave it. A dependent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, but does not form a complete thought. When Jim studied in the inn. This makes us ask what happens next. Coordinating conjunctions. These are used as connecting words between two independent clauses. There are 7 of them, and they're commonly referred to as fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Independent marker words always begin a sentence that can stand alone and can be used for transitions. Some examples are also, however, consequently, furthermore, moreover, nevertheless, and therefore. The most common one that you're going to come across is however. Remember, if you see an independent marker word at the beginning of a sentence, a comma should immediately follow it. If you find it in between two independent clauses, there should be a semicolon, your independent marker word, followed by a comma. If you come across this in your grammar questions, and it does not have that semicolon, your marker word, followed by a comma, it is wrong and you need to choose a different answer. Commas. These are used for a lot of different things in writing. I'm just going to go over the ones that are most commonly used. So commas separate a series or a list. They're used before a coordinating conjunction, after an introductory element, to separate 2 or more coordinated adjectives that describe something, before quotations, geographical names, and dates. When starting with a dependent clause, a comma indicates where the clause ends. Semicolons. These are stronger than commas. They're often used to connect 2 closely related ideas, 2 independent clauses that are separated by a conjunctive adverb, and when 2 or more independent clauses are joined. Colons are used for lists, long quotations, explanatory sentences, and formal greetings. When writing or reviewing grammar, be aware of using appropriate vocabulary. Know who your audience is. Ask yourself what information your audience is already expected to know. Know the difference between formal and informal vocabulary. Just a reminder, do not use slang, contractions, or swear words in a formal paper. If you use an acronym or an abbreviation in a formal paper, make sure that you introduce it first, and make sure that the abbreviation or acronym that you use is used in the same format consistently throughout your paper. Use proper punctuation, commas, colons, semicolons, quotation marks, periods, question marks, exclamation marks. Make sure that you're using internal and external punctuation. Be direct, focused, and concise. Stay on topic, and make sure that your sentences are in agreement. Singular versus plural, nouns and adjectives, subject and verb. And make sure that your tenses are in line with each other, past, present, and future. When you come to your sample questions and passages, make sure to read each question carefully. If you change your mind, simply click on a different answer. You may need to scroll to see all of the answer choices. Think about how you would rewrite the following sentences according to the directions given, and then choose the best answer. Keep in mind that your revision should not change the meaning of the original sentence. We're now going to start reviewing some TSI A2 sample questions. Read the statement and passage, and then choose the best answer to the question. Answer the question on the basis of what is stated or implied in the statement or passage. The students studied all weekend to prepare for the final English exam. Rewrite beginning with having studied all weekend. The next words will be A, to be prepared, B, the students, C, preparing students, or D, in preparation. Okay, were you able to cross any of them off? If you're looking at this closely, there should only be one answer that's correct. B, the students. Having studied all weekend, the students prepared for their final English exam. Any of the other answers create a dangling modifier. So as you're looking for answers, make sure that the proposed answer isn't going to create a grammatical error. Michael read the user manual from beginning to end and still could not figure out how to assemble the dollhouse. Rewrite beginning with, although he read the user manual from beginning to end. The next words will be A, Michael could not figure out, B, Michael's unassembled dollhouse, C, Michael who could not figure out, or D, the dollhouse's assembly. Anytime you're asked to rewrite something, you want to look carefully at what is underlined, what is included. Is there internal punctuation, or did they leave it off? Is adding one of these answers going to create a grammatical error, or is it going to complete the sentence? Look at the pieces of the information that we're provided with. Although he read the user manual from beginning to end. Identify this. What is this? This is a dependent clause, which means whatever comes next, since we have that comma, has to be the beginning of an independent clause. Look at our answers. Look at which of them can be the beginning of an independent clause. Did you find the answer? If you said A, that's correct. Although he read the user manual from beginning to end, Michael could not figure out. You'll have scratch paper so you can actually practice writing the rest of the sentence if you need to see the rest of that. Okay, now we're going to be looking at select the best version of the underlined part of the sentence. If you think the original sentence is best, choose the first answer. Remember, look carefully at what is underlined and what is included. If it's in the middle of a sentence, is internal punctuation included or was it left off? Do the answers include internal punctuation or is it left off? Cowbirds do not raise their own chicks, for instead, lay their eggs in other birds' nests. With these, you can actually take the answer and just drop it into the sentence and practice with each of them to see which one is the correct answer. So you have A, for instead, B, so instead, C, because they, and D, but instead they. All right, so if you went through, you'll notice that the first part of the sentence is a independent clause. It's immediately followed by a comma, which means that we're about to go into another independent clause. So we need to pick the answer that is going to create an independent clause using a comma. So you're going to need one of those fanboys or a conjunction to complete it. If you're looking closely, you'll also notice that the beginning of our second independent clause does not include a subject. So our answer is going to have to include a subject in it as well. So we're able to cross off A and B. That leaves us with C and D. Because they is incorrect because the word because in this instance does not need a comma. So the only correct answer would be D, but instead they lay their eggs in other birds' nests. All right, so we're looking at another one of select the best version of the underlined part of the sentence. If you think the original sentence is best, choose the first answer. Queen Victoria's reign spanned from 1837 to 1901. So we're looking at homonyms, words that look or sound similar to each other but have different meanings. You'll just need to identify the correct word. And the answer is C. Once again, we're looking at type of question where you select the best version of the underlined part of the sentence. If you think the original sentence is best, choose the first answer. Yesterday was a perfect day for a picnic. However, it was too hot. Is the answer A, however, B, but, C, because, or D, and? So let's look at these. Our first answer is A, however. This is incorrect because remember, if we're inserting one of these independent marker words in a sentence, especially if it's in the middle of a sentence, it needs to have a semicolon with a comma right after it. We're missing both of those, so that would be incorrect and we can cross that one off. But this will work and it makes sense grammatically. If you thought the answer was C, that's incorrect because in this case, because does not need a comma and doesn't make sense. Because we're inserting an exception explaining why it wasn't a perfect day, the correct answer is actually B. Select the best version of the underlined part of the sentence. If you think the original sentence is best, choose the first answer. Taylor loves Nintendo so much to not play any other game when it is available. Remember, the easiest way to check these in some cases is to actually take those answers and drop it into the sentence. So you'll essentially be reading it 4 or 5 times. Taylor loves Nintendo so much to not play any other game when it is available. Taylor loves Nintendo so much that not playing any other game when it is available. Taylor loves Nintendo so much that she will not play any other game when it is available. Or Taylor loves Nintendo so much not to play any other game when it is available. Sometimes if we read these softly under our breath, we'll be able to catch the correct answer. So the only one of these that makes sense is C. Select the best version of the underlined part of the sentence. If you think the original sentence is best, choose the first answer. Amir went to the store. He bought apples. So take a look at these. Remember, pay close attention to what is included in the underlined section. Is it including internal punctuation? What do each of these clauses mean? So our first part, Amir went to the store, is an independent clause. The second clause, the part that is not underlined, he bought apples, is an independent clause as well. Now, if you remember when we were going over our grammar review, when you are combining two independent clauses that are closely related in idea together in a sentence, you have to have one of two things. You either need a semicolon to combine them, or you will need a comma followed by a conjunction. So we can cross off A because it doesn't have any punctuation. B would change this into a dangling modifier that's missing internal punctuation. C would also leave us without that internal punctuation, so we'd have a comma splice, which leaves us with D. Amir went to the store and he bought apples. Read the question below and choose the best answer. Which of the following sentences would be the most appropriate in an essay about the history of baseball in the United States? When you're asked a question like this, you always want to go ahead and read our proposed answers and then go back and look at the question closely to see what we're actually being asked. So our first answer is the Boston Red Sox left-hander Ted Williams was rumored to have had his head cryogenically frozen after his death. B. Although the origins of baseball are steeped in myth, Its history begins in the U.S. in the mid to late 1800s. C. Baseball is a derivative of rounders and similar to cricket. Or D. Baseball is a sport reserved entirely for men. So let's look at our question again. Which of the following sentences would be the most appropriate in an essay about the history of baseball in the United States? So we're going to be looking specifically for history about baseball in the United States. So we can cross off A because it's not really specifically looking at U.S. history. It's more of a myth, factoid. Now, if we look at B, this is talking about the origins of baseball. It's talking about the myth of baseball. It's talking specifically about history and the U.S. and the date and when it began. This is our correct answer. Now, if you thought it was C, C does not have as much information and support for a essay that's about the history of baseball in the United States, and D is too biased, so you can cross that one off. Essay draft edits. Read the following early draft of an essay and then choose the best answer to the question or the best completion of the statement. Adele Davis, an American author, once said, "Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dine like a pauper," to describe the importance of each meal. This statement suggests that the largest amount of calories should be consumed at the beginning of the day. The first meal should contain the most calories, the second should taper off, and the last meal should be the smallest. Breakfast has long been considered the most important meal of the day, but it is a meal that is often skipped or consumed in insufficient quantities. The reason for this is because it is meant to break the fast after a night's sleep, hence the name breakfast. The first meal of the day provides the body with the energy necessary to fulfill the activities of the day without accessing the body's reserves. Each subsequent meal requires less calories to power the body for the rest of the day and prevent the consumption of muscle tissue. So when a person eats is as important as what a person eats. In context, which sentence should be inserted before sentence 6? The first meal of the day provides the body with the energy necessary to fulfill the activities of the day without accessing the body's reserves. A. Recent research supports this conclusion. B. This is a tradition that continues from the Middle Ages. C. Food is converted into energy, which in turn powers bodily functions. Or D. Multiple studies have been done, but only one is relevant. Make sure as you're going through that you look back at our passage and look at the sentences before and after. So once again, our question is, in context, which sentence should be inserted before sentence 6? The first meal of the day provides the body with the energy necessary to fulfill the activities of the day without accessing the body's reserves. A. Recent research supports this conclusion. B. This is a tradition that continues from the Middle Ages. C. Food is converted into energy, which in turn powers bodily functions. Or D. Multiple studies have been done, but only one is relevant. A and D are both very vague. It's not really adding useful information to our sentences. B is adding information that's not really necessary at this point. So that leaves us with C. Food is converted into energy, which in turn powers bodily functions. This is talking specifically about how each meal is used to fulfill the day's activities without accessing the body's reserves. In context, the following sentence would be best inserted after which sentence? Skipping a meal causes the body to cannibalize itself in search of consumable energy. A. Sentence 3. B. Sentence 7. C. Sentence 4. Or D. Sentence 6. So sentence A is the first meal should contain the most calories, the second should taper off, and the last meal should be the smallest. B. Each subsequent meal requires less calories to power the body for the rest of the day and prevent the consumption of muscle tissue. C. Breakfast has long been considered the most important meal of the day, but it is a meal that is often skipped or consumed in insufficient quantities. Or D, the first meal of the day provides the body with the energy necessary to fulfill the activities of the day without accessing the body's reserves. Once again, in context, the following sentence would best be inserted after which sentence. Skipping a meal causes the body to cannibalize itself in search of consumable energy. If you looked at the sentences carefully, the only sentence that's really going to go after this sentence and make sense kind of as a follow-up is sentence B. Each subsequent meal requires less calories to power the body for the rest of the day and prevent the consumption of muscle tissue. This goes directly with this idea of the body cannibalizing itself in search of consumable energy. The author argues that A, it is detrimental to skip meals, B, breakfast is always the best meal of the day, C, nobody ever eats enough calories, or D, eating nutritiously is a necessity. Once again, the author argues that A, it's detrimental to skip meals, B, breakfast is always the best meal of the day, C, nobody ever eats enough calories, or D, eating nutritiously is a necessity. If you're looking at these carefully, B and C can both be crossed off because they're presented as absolutes. Breakfast is always. Nobody ever eats enough calories. If you look at D, eating nutritiously is a necessity. This is kind of a general idea, but it's not what the author is arguing. So A is our correct answer. Which of the following pieces of information, if added to the first paragraph, would best support the writer's argument? A, although common elsewhere, skipping a meal during the work week is not common in the U.S. B, the afternoon slump that many workers experience is partly a result of the digestion of their lunches. C, other research suggests that eating disorders may be hereditary. Or D, feasting at breakfast is a tradition that originated in the Middle Ages. Once again, we have, which of the following pieces of information, if added to the first paragraph, would best support the writer's argument? A, although common elsewhere, skipping a meal during the work week is not common in the U.S. This is incorrect because nowhere in the passage does it talk about the work week or looking specifically at the U.S. B, the afternoon slump that many workers experience is partly a result of the digestion of their lunches. Once again, this is information that is not found in the passage at all. We are not talking about workers. We're not talking about a slump in the afternoon. C, other research suggests that eating orders may be hereditary. There's nothing in the passage that's discussing eating disorders or how it may be hereditary, or even other research. So that leaves us with D. Feasting at breakfast is a tradition that originated in the Middle Ages. And this one fits because we've been talking about the history and kind of the legend of breakfast, where it came from, why we have it. Essay draft edits. Read the following early draft of an essay and then choose the best answer to the question or the best completion of the statement. Words create. Words are created and are creators of worlds. They are living, breathing entities that grow and change and die and are reborn. Each word can start as something simple and then change over time. Words can be adapted to the needs of their people and can even transform into new languages entirely. The simple fact is words create a language and that all languages change over time. When they stop changing, it becomes classified as a dead language and is no longer used as an everyday spoken language. Latin is one such language that is classified as a dead language because it ceased to adapt and grow. Its vocabulary remains unchanged since the fall of the Roman Empire. Young adults are credited for a lot of the growth and development of new words because as a language ages, individual words, letters, and sounds are shortened or eliminated entirely. Some experts argue that slang is the death of a language, while others argue that slang broadens the vocabulary by adding additional words to the language. Words that began as slang can become commonly spoken. Sometimes languages combine to form an entirely new language. Sumerian is the oldest known language, and Lingala is one of the newest. Which sentence provides unnecessary information and should be deleted from the paragraph? A. Sentence 13, B. Sentence 5, C. Sentence 8, or D. Sentence 6? A. 13. Sumerian is the oldest known language and Lingala is one of the newest. B. Sentence 5. Words can be adapted to the needs of their people and can even transform into new languages entirely. C. Sentence 8. Latin is one such language that is classified as a dead language because it ceased to adapt and grow. Its vocabulary remains unchanged since the fall of the Roman Empire. Or D. Sentence 6. The simple fact is words create a language and that all languages can change over time. Which sentence provides unnecessary information and should be deleted from the paragraph? So if you looked at those sentences closely, you'll notice the only one that doesn't really seem to fit was the last sentence, sentence 13, because it's talking about the oldest language in history and one of the newest languages, and it's not really carrying on our argument. So you can cross off sentence 13 on A. In context, which of the following is the best way to revise and combine sentences 1 and 2? Words create. Words are created and are creators of worlds. A. Words create and words are created. B. Words build, but words are also shaped. C. Words create and are creators of worlds. Or D. Words generate, but they are also created. Remember, as you're going through and you're looking very closely at all of the answers that you're provided with, you're going to be looking especially for any that have grammatical errors. So if you look at A, words create and words are created. These are both independent clauses and they have a coordinating conjunction that's combining them, but we don't have a comma, so we can cross that one off. We're also trying to make sure that we're not deviating too much from the original meaning of the sentences. Words build and words are also shaped. For B and D, words generate, but they are also created. These are changing the primary meaning quite a bit, so we can cross those off. That'll leave us with C. Words create and are creators of worlds. Does the author agree with the experts who state slang is the death of a language? A. Yes, because slang introduces a level of informality that is detrimental to the development of language. B. Yes, because slang words are not included in everyday spoken language. C. No, because slang broadens the vocabulary of a language. Or D. No, because as a language matures, words and sounds are shortened and replaced entirely. Does the author agree with the experts who state slang is the death of a language? Yes, because slang introduces a level of informality that is detrimental to the development of a language. And B. Yes, because slang words are not included in everyday spoken language. If you look carefully at the passage, it talks about how young adults introduce slang into the language and it's later adopted into the language itself. So we can cross both of those off. No, because slang broadens the vocabulary of a language. This is somewhat true, but let's go ahead and look at the last one. No, because as a language matures, words and sounds are shortened and replaced entirely. Now, if you were looking very carefully at the passage and looking for keywords, you'll notice it says, as a language ages, words, letters, and sounds are shortened. Ages is another word for matures, and it is talking about how sounds are shortened and replaced entirely. So this is the statement that has the most support from our passage, and that's our correct answer. Which is the best version of the underlined portion? If the original is best, choose as is. When they stop changing, it becomes classified as a dead language and is no longer used as an everyday spoken language. A, as is. B, when a language stagnates. C, when the vocabulary of a language ceases to expand. Or D, a language can never cease to grow. Or which is the best version of the underlined portion? If the original is best, choose as is. When they stop changing, it becomes classified as a dead language and is no longer used as an everyday spoken language. When we're looking for the best version of the underlined portion, we want to look carefully and see what is included. What type of phrases or clauses are we looking at? So when they stop changing is a dependent clause and the comma is included. So if we replace this clause with another dependent clause, we're going to need internal punctuation included. If we replace this clause with an independent clause, we're going to need either a comma and a coordinating conjunction or a semicolon. We can cross the first one off, the as is, when they stop changing, because it's using the third person they, which is very vague and informal, and it skews our clarity. If we look carefully at B, when a language stagnates, we have a comma included. It is a dependent clause, and it makes sense. This is the correct answer. If you chose C, look carefully. This dependent clause does not include a comma, so that's going to make it incorrect. We run into the same issue with sentence D because it's not including internal punctuation. So our correct answer is B. Star Center Resources. For additional information about the Star Center resources, visit mavericksresearch.lonestar.edu. You'll be able to learn all about the different services available for both in-person and online students. Thank you for attending our workshop.